Yeah, it's always very difficult to it's a difficult decision to retire from a match. I know no one likes winning.
The tournament organizers watched in disbelief as the stands started to empty. The most prestigious tennis event on the planet was losing its crown jewel, and nobody could figure out why. £6. That is what Wimbledon tickets had been reduced to. Less than a cup of coffee in London. Less than a tube fare across the city. How did the most exclusive tournament in tennis history become the cheapest ticket in town? When Alex Eala walked off center court after her fourth-round defeat to Jasmine Paolini, she did not just leave behind a dream. She took something with her, something the WTA did not realize they had been relying on until it was gone. The Eala Effect had been filling stadiums, driving ratings, and turning casual viewers into die-hard fans. And when it vanished, the economic aftershock was immediate and devastating. Because here is the truth they do not want you to know. This was not just about one player losing a match. This was about a movement that had captured the world's attention, and the moment it ended, the entire tournament started to crumble. What happened next would leave the WTA scrambling, tournament directors panicking, and ticket prices crashing to levels nobody thought possible. And the most shocking part? The woman who caused it all was not even in London anymore. The All England Club had never seen anything quite like it. A 21-year-old from Manila was transforming the hallowed grounds of Wimbledon into a home away from home, and the tennis world was struggling to process what was happening. When Alexandra Eala arrived at the 2026 championships as the 29th seed, she was already a history maker as the first Filipina player ever seeded in the Wimbledon main draw. But what unfolded over the next week would shatter every expectation and redefine what was possible for Philippine tennis. Her journey began on court 12, where she dismantled Mexico's Renata Zarazua in a commanding 6-1, 6-2 victory. It was a straightforward win, but the crowd told a different story. Hundreds of Filipino flags dotted the stands. Chants of Alex echoed across the grounds, and Eala herself was taken aback by the support. I was really surprised. The Filipinos keep surprising me, and surprising me in good ways, she admitted after her victory. I know how notoriously difficult it is to get tickets to this event. To have what I would call a full house of Filipinos is amazing. I never would have thought that at Wimbledon I would have a home crowd. Super thankful, and I really enjoyed it. The Filipina diaspora had mobilized. Nurses from London, engineers from Manchester, students from across the UK had descended upon Wimbledon to witness their countrywoman make history. And this was just the beginning. In the second round, Eala faced Australia's Maya Joint. After dropping the first set 3-6, she displayed the resilience that had become her trademark, roaring back to win 6-2, 6-0. The crowd grew louder, the legend grew larger. Speaking after the match, Eala reflected on the emotional weight of the moment. It's obviously an amazing thing for me to do that for my country. I really appreciate that I'm able to share this with the nation. But I think first and foremost, it makes me super proud because of the work that I've put in. By the time she stepped onto center court to face defending champion Iga Swiatek, the world was finally paying attention. Swiatek was the world number 3, the reigning queen of Wimbledon, and arguably the most dominant force in women's tennis. But Eala had beaten top 10 opponents before. And on this particular Saturday in London, she was about to produce the biggest upset of her career. The first set went to a tiebreak, a nail-biting affair that tested every ounce of Eala's nerve. She prevailed 9-7. The second set was a masterclass in composure as she breezed to a 6-2 victory. When the final ball landed, center court erupted, not just for Swiatek's defeat, but for the improbable rise of a Filipina sensation who had just conquered the sport's most prestigious stage. Eala had won at center court. She had beaten the defending champion. She had become the first Filipino in history to reach the second week of a Grand Slam singles tournament. The world was officially on notice, but this victory was about more than just tennis. It represented the arrival of a movement. The Eala Effect was being felt far beyond the white lines of the court, and nobody was prepared for the impact it would have on the tournament itself. While Eala was captivating crowds at Wimbledon, something extraordinary was happening 6,000 miles away. In Manila, an entire nation had stopped to watch. Approximately 8,000 fans gathered at the Phil Sports Arena in Pasig to watch Eala's fourth-round clash against Jasmine Paolini. The venue was packed. The energy was electric. And despite heavy rains battering the city, no one was leaving. They had come to witness history. The images of Eala's victory over Swiatek had already gone viral, amassing over 1.2 million views on Wimbledon's YouTube channel, more than some videos featuring Novak Djokovic or Serena Williams. The Philippines, a nation of over 110 million people, had found its new sporting hero. Eala's rise came at a time when the country was hungry for sporting success. The nation had not had many female sports stars to cheer on the global stage, with men's boxing legend Manny Pacquiao and gymnast Carlos Eala flying the flag. But Eala was different. She represented something new, a young woman who had trained at the Rafa Nadal Academy, who spoke with humility and grace, and who was proving that Filipinos could compete with the best in the world. Her fans were not just watching, they were mobilizing. Filipino communities across the UK, the United States, and beyond were organizing watch parties, coordinating travel to London, and ensuring that wherever Eala played, the blue, red, and yellow of the Philippine flag would be visible. Eala, for her part, was deeply aware of the responsibility she carried. She was sporting a custom Nike visor bearing a phrase in Tagalog which translates to, "Every dream begins as a seed. Once it grows, it cannot be stopped." I think it's so sentimental to be able to wear things or to carry parts of my culture with me on court, because of course it's a huge reason as to who I am, she explained. And for me to be able to represent the Philippines in Wimbledon and in the biggest stages in the world, it means so much to me. What Eala did not realize was that her presence was becoming economically significant. Ticket sales were surging, viewership numbers were breaking records. The WTA had stumbled upon something they had not anticipated, a global phenomenon that transcended the sport itself. But in tennis, as in life, what rises must eventually fall. The stage was set for another chapter in Eala's fairy tale run. Center court was packed. The sun was baking down on the All England club. And standing across the net was Jasmine Paolini, the 13th seed, a two-time Grand Slam finalist, and a woman determined to stop the Filipina juggernaut. From the very first point, the match was a battle. Paolini, who had been struggling with a foot injury earlier in the year, started fast and surged into a 4-1 lead. The Italian's aggression was relentless, and her serve was finding the corners. Eala, for the first time in the tournament, looked unsettled. But the 21-year-old refused to go quietly. She began to find her rhythm, her ground strokes gaining power and precision. The crowd, overwhelmingly in her favor, roared with every point she won. And when she broke Paolini's serve to level the second set, the momentum had shifted. "Eala is an incredible competitor," said former Wimbledon champion Marion Bartoli on BBC Radio. "You can never doubt her determination and grit." The second set was a masterclass in resilience. Eala's backhand slice, which had been a weapon throughout the tournament, was catching the lines and scooting through the grass. Paolini, for all her experience, was struggling to match Eala's intensity. When the Filipinas sealed the second set 6-4, the center court erupted. A deciding set was upon them. The third set was a war of attrition. Both players were giving everything, their lungs burning, their legs aching. The score was poised at 3-3, with the match hanging in the balance. Then, at 3-4, disaster struck. Back-to-back errors from Eala handed Paolini the crucial break, and just like that, the dream was over. Paolini held her nerve, serving out the match to win 6-4, 4-6, 6-3. When the final ball landed, Eala stood at the net, her head bowed. She had pushed the 2024 Wimbledon finalist to the very limit. She had won the hearts of millions, but she had also lost. As she walked off center court, the applause was deafening. The crowd was not applauding a defeat. They were applauding a journey. They were applauding a woman who had given everything. But in the WTA offices, a different emotion was stirring. Panic. Within hours of Eala's defeat, the economic impact began to surface. Ticket prices for the remaining Wimbledon matches crashed to record lows, as low as £6 in some instances. The numbers were staggering. The Eala Effect had been a financial phenomenon. Her matches had packed stadiums, with Filipino fans traveling from across the UK and Europe to watch her play. And now, with her exit, the demand had evaporated. It was not just Wimbledon that was affected. The WTA, which had been enjoying a surge in global viewership, suddenly saw their metrics plummet. Eala had been the story of the tournament. Her matches had been the most talked about events on social media, and now she was gone. The response from ticket resellers was immediate. Prices plummeted. Seats that had been selling for hundreds of pounds were now available for the price of a sandwich. But the panic was about more than just ticket sales. The WTA had been banking on Eala's continued presence to drive interest in the latter stages of the tournament. Without her, the narrative was lost. The contrast was stark. Just days earlier, 8,000 fans had packed a venue in Manila to watch her play. Now empty seats in London told a different story. The Eala Effect was not just about ticket sales. It was about media coverage, social media engagement, and global interest in the sport, and all of that had vanished overnight. The final chapter of this story is not about a tennis match. It is about what the WTA failed to recognize until it was too late. Alex Eala had become more than a tennis player. She had become a symbol of hope for a nation of 110 million people. She had turned stadiums into celebrations of Filipino culture. She had inspired thousands of young girls to pick up a racket. And she had done it all with humility, grace, and an unwavering belief in herself. Her custom visor, bearing the Tagalog phrase about dreams turning into seeds that cannot be stopped, was not just a fashion statement, it was a philosophy. And it was one that had resonated with millions. "I really appreciate that I'm able to share this with the nation," she had said after her victory over Joint. "I think first and foremost it makes me super proud because of the work that I've put in." But the WTA had not seen the bigger picture. They had seen a marketing opportunity, a ratings boost, a financial windfall. And when she was gone, they realized they had built their house on sand. The question now is not whether Alex Eala will return to the grandest stages of tennis. She will. She has the talent, the determination, and the support of a nation behind her. The question is whether the WTA will learn from what just happened, because the Eala effect was not a fluke. It was a movement. And movements do not end when a player loses a match. They end when those in power fail to recognize their value. Tennis has been changed forever by this improbable run. Alex Eala may have lost on center court, but she won something far more important. She won the hearts of a nation, and no ticket price can ever measure that.